My name's Michelle if you're new here, and this is Michelle's Media Musings, M3 for short. This channel is where I talk about books, TV shows, movies, all of that good stuff, mostly from Black authors with Black characters, Black experiences, Black excellence, Black love, all of that. Today I am picking out a book to read and discuss with you guys. So I want you to meet my TBR jar, Perry. If you're new here, this is Perry and this is my TBR shelf. I pretty much wrote out all of the books that I have not read and put them in this jar. And most of the time, I'm gonna let Perry pick my next book. I feel like this is just a fun way to pick out books. I have quite a few and I am never sure like which books to pick. So it's always a nice surprise when Perry picks my books for me. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. I'm gonna open Perry up and choose a book. Let's see what we got. The Black Kids. Let me grab it. I got it. I'm trying to peel the sticker off. I got this on bargain for $6. I hate how they put the sticker on there and make it so hard to get off. Like, I wish, like, bookstores, if you're listening, get some stickers that are easy to peel off and don't leave residue. Okay, so here we have our book, The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. And this is an older one. Let me see when it came out. 2020. And this is a young adult. And it is centered around the Rodney King riots. This girl, I think she goes to a school with mostly white kids. And then this whole riot thing happens. And suddenly her and her friends, the other black kids, they are the black kids, you know? And it's kind of like an us against them. It seems like another one of those young adult books that is centered around race issues. I just read one in the last video. And like I said in that video, I tend to really like those books. I did see someone that I like review this book and they did not like it as much. However, like I said, I tend to really like these types of books. So I'm interested. And because it's set in the 90s, I think that's going to give it even more of a, you know, a nostalgic feel. So I'm excited about it. So let's dive into it. I will see you guys in the next clip. Hey, you guys, I'm back and I'm here to give you some thoughts on The Black Kids. But before I do that, I did go to Books A Million and got a few books. So I want to share with you guys what I got. Y'all know I'm not supposed to be buying no books. And that there's hardly any room for any new books. But here we are. I might have to do like an unhaul earlier. I normally am trying to like wait until the end of the year because I want to like take a picture of like all the books, all the physical books that I read in that year. But I don't know if we're gonna make it because the little shelf that I have is getting full and that's all that I'm allowed to have. So, but you know, this is, we're good for now, but again, remind me not to buy any more books. Remind me. I don't know if we're gonna make it, but anyways, so yeah, I was perusing through my little bargain section in my little Books A Million, and I found some things. So the first thing I want to show you is this Beverly Jenkins book, Second Time Sweeter. So I think that this is it a second chance romance? So it's about this guy who was a player. He's a player. He's a player. He's a player now. I know he's a player. If you know what that's from. Anyways, he's a player, and apparently he got his act together. You know, he's with one woman. He's got a nice, profitable business. But something happens, a moment of pride, and, you know, he loses his woman. He loses her trust. And so I guess from there, he tries to like get her forgiveness. And then there's another guy who is reunited with his high school sweetheart. So that, you know, we got two guys in this, which I like. You know, we got two protagonist guys who are trying to, you know, make it work for the second time. Different situations. Yeah, I saw the name Beverly Jenkins, and I think, isn't she the one who normally writes historical fiction? I'm not so much a historical fiction girl, but when I saw this and I read the synopsis, I'm like, let's give it a try. So, and it doesn't seem to be historical fiction. However, it is kind of giving like 90s. I don't know. When I think of like Homecoming, I think about, because I grew up near an HBCU. So when I was young, anytime Homecoming would come around, you know, we would go to the step shows and we would go to the games. And so it kind of reminds me of my youth. But yeah, let's see. This book was written was published in 2018. So not that old, but I think that this would be nice. And this is probably a good time to read it because it is homecoming season. So we'll see. The next one I found was Vanessa Miller, What We Found in Hallelujah. It was in the section called like Christian fiction. But it is about the Reynolds women, and apparently nothing good happens in November. So they lost their patriarch in November, and one of them went missing during a tropical storm in November. So I guess this year when that month rolls around, one of the girls sees her boyfriend kissing another woman, and then there's something going on with their mom and their beach house. And then another one of the women is looking at divorce and trying to raise a daughter. And Hallelujah is the town that they live in South Carolina. Yeah, we'll see. Apparently, like, it's, you know, it's storms there. It's like hurricane season there in November. And yeah. So this also might be a good book to read soon since November is approaching. It's giving like fall, like cool fall beach vibes, which also resonates with me because last year me and my husband did our honeymoon at the beach, and it was like late October, you know, cold, like coolish fall. So yeah, we'll see when we get to this. The next one I'm really, really excited about is by Nakisa Afia, and it's called Harlem Sunset. It is a Harlem Renaissance mystery. So I may end up, you know, reading this one soon because it is, you know, spooky and mystery and thriller time. We have a few characters here. Louise is the main character, and she is dating Rosa. Louise is 27, and she works at this club, and the manager there is one of her close friends, Raphael. Another girl who she meets there, I don't know if the girl works there or not, her name is Nora. So one night, the four of them are at the club drinking and talking. The next morning, the girlfriend wakes up and sees the friend covered in blood, or she's covered in blood, and the friend is lying there dying, and she has no idea what's going on. And so the main character, Louise, she knows that her girlfriend did not kill this girl, but the police, are having a hard time trying to figure out what happened. And when they get home that day, the next day, they see the word guilty written across their living room, and it looks like it's written in blood. So obviously somebody is trying to frame the girlfriend. And Louise, she's not having it. She's going to try to figure out like what's going on, and she's going to fight for her woman. So okay, we have, two girlfriends, and we have a murder mystery going on. So yeah, I might end up reading this soon. I might get together. I never do a TBR, but for October, I might get together a TBR of kind of like my mysteries and my spookies. I know normally I have my guy Perry here pick my reads, but since it's the time, since it's the season, I might try to get in some of those mystery thriller books. And this might be one of them. So we will see. And the last one I have here is Reggie and Delilah's Year of Kissing. I've seen this book around. It is a young adult book. So actually, this is a 3-part series, I think. And I have the last book. Yeah. I don't know if you can really see that. It's kind of small. But I have this one that I got from Books A Million on discount in another city. So, yeah, I guess all I need is the second one now. But I was happy. I was happy to get this one because I've seen, like I said, I've seen this one around, and I've seen kind of like maybe like mixed reviews on it. But y'all know I love a good young adult book. I'm here for it, and I'm ready to get into it, and see what it's about. This one is about, we have Delilah, who is like a shy girl. However, she ends up singing in her friend's punk band, even though she'd rather be behind the scenes. I guess she's doing her friend a favor. And then we have Reggie, who seems to be kind of like a nerd. He's a gamer and spends all his time gaming and then writing essays about the game. His family doesn't seem to be approving of all that, so he tries to like keep it quiet. So the two end up meeting like on holidays. So we have New Year's Eve, we have Valentine's Day, we have St. Patrick's Day. So they end up like running into each other on these holidays, and they're starting to like each other. However, each of them are presenting like a version of themselves that is not real. Obviously Delilah, she's in this punk band and she doesn't really want to be. She's kind of shy. And Reggie, he seems to be confident in his nerd quests, the thing, the nerdy stuff that he likes. But he's not being like upfront about that, with his family and I guess the people around him. So they're starting to like each other, but they're like false versions. So I imagine that as the story goes on, who they really are will be revealed, and it'll add conflict, and then they will start to really get to know each other and potentially fall in love. So yeah, Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling. We're gonna see what it's giving. I probably will just go ahead and put this in the TBR jar and save for later, since it's giving like, multiple holidays. It might be a good one to start in the new year, since they kind of run into each other on New Year's Eve or New Year's Eve. So yeah, we might save this for later. But yeah, so those are the 4 books that I got from Books A Million. And I love it. I love getting new books. I always get from the bargain section. Y'all know all of these books were between $5 and $6. When the cashier was like ringing up and giving me my total, my husband was like, $22. Like that's really good. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I shop in the bargain section. If I, was to get a regular book, it would probably be, I would only be able to get one book. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just looking at the prices on these books. These books aren't too bad. Full price, $16. Yeah, these books actually aren't too bad, $16. But still, like, I got 4 for $22. So, yeah, you can't beat that. Anyways, let's get to the Black kids. So, I've read about 100 pages or so. And so far, we're getting a lot of, like, background information. A lot of, like, world building. And normally that term is used in like fantasy and things like that. But because this is like a book based in the 90s, it was written more recently, but it is based in the 90s around the Rodney King riots. Because of that, we're getting a lot of information about the times that we're in. For example, there's like a reference to like Richard Simmons. They're doing like a Richard Simmons workout. If you know, you know. And just we're getting information about the different characters and about what types of people they are. We're getting like backgrounds of not just current day, but also back in the days, like when they were younger, what things are said and, how different experiences have shaped the characters to where they are now at this moment. So we have the main character, Ashley. She is the narrator. She seems to be self-aware, even though, she's young. She still has like a lot to learn, but she seems to be aware of like what's going on around her and also pretty curious about the world. And so her family, has some money. They live in a good, wealthy neighborhood. She goes to a wealthy school. However, she is, one of few Black kids at the school. But because she like grew up, in that, she has all of her close friends are white. There are other Black kids, but like I said, she's not really friends with them like that. Like all of her friends are white. She has 3 main friends: Kimberly, Courtney, and Heather. And they all seem to have like known each other since they were young, like they've grown up. They're in high school now. They're high school seniors. I think there's only a few weeks left in school, so they will be graduating soon. But they've known each other probably since they were in like elementary school. Like they've grown up in school together. Kimberly seems to be the ringleader of the group. Courtney kind of like runs behind her, like, as like a flunky kind of. Heather seems to be the most mature and kind of like the most opinionated. Like she speaks her mind versus like following after the Kimberly girl. Now these girls, they say a bunch of slick stuff about her being Black. Like it's very clear, like, you're the Black girl in this group. They have a run-in with the cops. Like they're skipping school. They have a little run-in. And one of the girls says that they would have gotten away with it if they weren't with Ashley. I don't know if I said her name. Ashley, the main character. They're like, oh, it's because you're Black, or else we would have gotten away with it. What else did they say? Somebody said that, oh, it's like you're lucky you're Black because, you can get into college or whatever. Like it's easier for you to get into college. They even say the N-word around her, and she lets them. She says that it's cool, even though she doesn't think that it's really cool. So with Ashley, our main character, like she has a lot of thoughts and opinions, but she doesn't like always express them. She doesn't really have like the confidence or the words to really like stand up for herself in those situations. I mean, like she knows it's wrong, but again, like it's just hard for her to stand up for herself in that way because this is the environment she grew up in. Like these are her friends. Like they've been her friends, since they were young. So it's awkward for her, and I can relate to that, honestly. If you don't know, if you're new to this channel, I grew up in also a predominantly like white neighborhood, went to predominantly white school. There was a time when I was the only black kid in the school. So I get it. Not to say that it was a like affluent neighborhood. Like it's all kind of middle to like low class, So there wasn't that issue. But Ashley's parents, they are, affluent. Her dad has a good job. Her mom, is real bougie. We're gonna talk about the mom later, but it just makes me think, this is kind of a tangent, but like it makes me think like, the parents, they think that they're doing a good job by sending their kids to a white school. Same with my parents. We lived in that neighborhood, so I kind of had to go to that school. But there was a time when there was like a good 2 years where I went to a more diverse school. And my mom said that, I started to be more sassy and like roll my neck and stuff. And so when they had the opportunity to send me back to the white schools, that they were happy to. However, I don't really believe that that's true. I don't believe that that's, I don't know. Like, just like the parents just think that they're doing a good thing by sending them to the white schools, and that the white schools are better or better educated, and that their child will do better. However, when you have situations like this, it's just like, how does a black child really develop their black identity when they're in an all white environment? Like, how do you really do that? I know for me, like, that's why I really like reading books about black people, by black people, and I like watching black TV. When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of black friends. I had, That's So Raven, T and Tamara, Sister, like that's the black representation that I looked up to. I did have other examples in real life, but on a day-to-day, everyday basis, especially like in my peer group and things like that, like that's what I was looking up to, and that's what I like aspire to. So yeah, I just think that that's an interesting thing. So I don't necessarily fault Ashley for allowing her friends to say the N-word. It even goes back to like Bel-Air. The new Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like the dramatic series Bel-Air. How this is a spoiler, obviously, if you have not seen that show, but early on in that show, Carlton is hanging with his white friends, and he's allowing his white friends to say the N-word, while they're listening to music or whatever. And Will, obviously being from West Philly, he's not going for that, right? So you can clearly see like how a person that was raised in this white environment would be okay with that, or not necessarily be okay with that, but not really be able to voice that, versus someone who grew up differently and is like, hell no, like you're not about to say that. You know what I mean? When you grow up in that environment, like you want to fit in, and you don't want to have to like educate people about blackness. You don't, it's like every Black History Month, everybody kind of is looking at you like, like it's so awkward for kids who grow up in that environment. And so even though, parents may think that the education might be better, but again, I ask, how are they forming a healthy identity of who they are, you know? Because there's a lot of people out there who develop self-hatred or, have really intense like colorism and things like that, just because they grew up in that environment and they're socialized by those things. That's how we get like black people who are Trump supporters. Not all of them, but some of them, right? Like it's just interesting to me. I worry now that I am becoming a parent how I will help my kids, because I still live in a predominantly like white area, and I imagine that a lot of people deal with this, but we just don't hear, we may not, or maybe I just don't hear enough about it. But yeah, that's something that I really think about. How am I going to help my children navigate that, and how do I help them develop a healthy, prideful black identity, anyways, rant over, back to the book. So Kimberly is dating Michael, and he's on the wrestling team, which nobody really cares about the wrestling team, but he's good looking. So, people give him attention or whatever. He has a friend named Trevor, and Ashley is going to the prom with Trevor, even though she don't really like him like that. But it's like, when you're a black girl in these all-white schools, like, you kind of take what you can get. And she feels like, it's nice to be with somebody. It's nice to, he puts his arm around her, and, that's nice. So she's going to the prom with him. However, her and Michael have a little thing going on, like a little, they hang out, when nobody else is around and stuff. So we have that. Michael even gets jealous when he sees Ashley talking to this other boy, LaShawn. So LaShawn is one of the black kids. He is the golden child of the school. He plays basketball. He's handsome, of course, but it's not only that. He is really smart. He's at the top of his class. He's funny. He got into Stanford, and our girl's a little jealous because Stanford is one of her top schools, and she got waitlisted. So, this boy, he seems to have everything going on. And before all of this, before like the Rodney King stuff started going on, they didn't really talk. But now, they seem to have like interactions, conversations. And Michael peeps it a little bit, and he's a little bit jealous. Let's talk about Ashley's family. So her dad seems kind of stern a little bit, or like maybe a little bit stubborn, but he's warm. He seems like, your typical black dad that is warm. He's around, but he also, works a lot. He's got this, I'm not sure exactly what he does, but, he makes good money. He works. So there's that. Now the mom, she is super bougie and classist, and that comes out a lot when they talk about her sister Jo. Now her sister Jo, she is the problem child. She's a complicated child. It seems as if Jo has dealt with a lot of depression, and her parents are kind of like they don't understand. This is the 90s, so they really did not understand mental health and depression back then. And so, her parents are like, be happy. Like, we have all of these things. Like, what's like, and like, they don't get it. So Jo, she dropped out of college and married this white man that like they didn't know each other for that long before they got married and things. And Joe is also, like I said, she's the rebellious child. She's the self-righteous child. She gets into like social justice, and as the riots and things are happening, like she's starting to get involved in that. And so her sister Ashley and also her parents, they're concerned. They're worried. Joe also lives in this bad neighborhood, and like I said with the mom, like the mom, like they go over to Joe's for dinner one night to, I guess, meet her new husband and try to what's the word? They're trying to come together. And the mom, she can't stop talking about how bad that neighborhood is, and the husband, he got pimples or whatever. And like as they're leaving the girl's apartment, there's some black boys that are getting harassed by the police, and all the mom can really think about is, oh, and like she wants to live in this terrible neighborhood, and it's like all about that and not about like those boys. Like, hello, like what are we gonna do about these boys getting harassed? That's what Ashley's thinking. But of course, she's a child, so what can she do? What is she gonna do? But even when they get home and they're retelling all of this to the dad's like, well, what y'all do about the boys? And the mama's like, we got out of there. What do you mean? There's more, to say about the mom, but just know that she is classist, she's bougie, she looks down on people that are less fortunate than her. Okay, so that is pretty much like the background. That was like pretty much, let me see, like the first 90 pages. So so the story gets started and all of that happened when she was telling us about all that stuff. All of that was the trial, the Rodney King trial was going on. So now, as the story is getting started, the verdict has been given not guilty. And the riots are starting to happen. Okay? The looting is happening and things like that. So our guy, LaShawn, he comes to school late. He often comes to school late because he buses to school. He lives in the bad neighborhoods, right? So he has to bus to get to the nice school or whatever. So he comes late, and he walks in. He has these Jordans. So they're like some exclusive Jordans. I asked my husband if he knew, and he's like, yes, of course I know about those. There's some Jordans like in honor of the Olympics, and instead of the 23, they have the 9. That was his number when he, played in the Olympics or whatever. So he has those, and they're all wondering like, well, Ashley is wondering, how is he able to afford these shoes when he apparently, is so poor and lives in this poor neighborhood? So again, we can see how the neighborhood that Ashley lives in and the people and even her parents, how they influence her thinking. So it was very like, I kind of got the sense like, this is something her mom would say. This is something her mom would probably think. But she's like, how is he able to afford, these shoes if he's so poor or whatever? So she's thinking this, but then she says it to her friend group accidentally because she knows she's wrong for thinking that. She knows she's wrong. But she says it to all of them, and then they are kind of going off on a tangent about like, oh, do you think he stole them? You know how teenagers are, how high school is, and you can just imagine how that is going to spread like wildfire. The only one that defends him is Heather. Heather's like, oh no, he wouldn't do that, da da da. There's some other people in the school because, like I said, the rumor is starting to get around, but there are other people like, oh no, he wouldn't do that, whatever. So that's where we are. it's also weird because, like I said, her and LaShawn are starting to have more conversations. So she's starting to they're starting to, kind of develop a nice little friendship. So she knows she's wrong, but it's getting complicated. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm enjoying it. I don't know if you could tell, but this is kind of like the second or third book in a row where we've talked about where race has been one of the main topics in the book. And like I've said before, I really like those. I really like thinking about how race impacts our identity and our culture and our beliefs and who we date and who our friends are and what we believe and, the events of the world and how that also, influences things. It's uncomfortable seeing all of the microaggressions and the little slick things that people say in this book. And my hope is that the main character will learn a valuable lesson about her identity and learn how to have some confidence and some self-love and stand up for herself and stand up for what she believes in. So we're going to see. I'm going to keep reading and I will catch you guys in the next clip. Hey guys, I am back to tell you all about the Black kids. Okay, so yeah, I was, reading and taking notes and stuff, and eventually I had to stop taking notes because it was just going on, and like our main character Ashley, she's very like introspective, and she like goes on these tangents about things that's kind of related but not related to what's going on. Like she'll just randomly like give you like facts about palm trees in California. She randomly will say something like, oh yeah, I heard my dad talking to Lucia about the time his friend overdosed on drugs or something. And I kept thinking like, okay, is this ever going to, like, what is the point of these tangents? Is this ever going to come full circle? Like, is there a reason? I kept thinking like, okay, maybe we are getting these tangents because it is telling us more about the characters, telling us more about the types of people they are, the things that they've seen, things that they've been through. This book it does a good job at like telling you about generational trauma from like racism, right? So we get glimpses of her parents dealing with racism. We get glimpses of her grandparents, and so on and so forth, like how racism has impacted like each generation. So there was that. I mean, some of it like came full circle and stuff, but some of it I was just like, we could have probably done without like 50 pages or so. I don't know. Some of it was just like, okay, like let's get, like, I'm ready for some action. Like I'm ready for some stuff to happen. Like things were going so slow. And then in between the slow moments, she kept interjecting these random tidbits of stuff. And I'm just like, okay, like, where are we going? Fortunately, it did start to pick up a little bit. And when I say it picked up a little bit, finally Ashley was getting a taste of that racism that her parents had experienced, and her grandparents, and so on and so forth. It's like, okay, now we have a new generation, and now it's your turn to experience some things. So something happens, and it finally like clicks for her. Like everything like clicks for her. In the beginning, she keeps saying like, yeah, the Rodney case is going on. I don't care about it yet. This stuff is happening. This stuff is happening. I don't really get it yet. We finally get that moment where she gets it, and something her sister said like resonates. It's like, this is not just about Rodney King, this is about all of us. And so she's like, oh, I see what you're saying. And it's interesting how her dad was really trying to like shield her from experiencing racism, I guess, or experiencing like, things that he may have experienced, which is crazy because you live in a mostly white neighborhood, you go to a mostly white school, like does that make sense? But he tries to shield her from certain things. He tries to keep the things that have happened to him, to his family, to his mother. Like he tries to keep like all of that a secret from his girls. However, like obviously, like that stuff is like ingrained. Like something her uncle says is like, yeah, like that stuff it's in us. It's in our bones, like we can't escape it. Like it happened and it's been passed down, and we are going to have to learn how to deal with it. So her parents learn a big lesson in that you can't shield your kids from what's going on. There's a moment in the book where the mom, she actually acknowledges like maybe it wasn't the best idea to send you to, that school, maybe I should have sent you to a place where more diversity and things like that. And I was happy for that moment because like I said before, parents really think that they're doing a good job and like, oh, the education is better and, you'll have better outcomes and stuff. But it can put you at a disadvantages in other ways, in terms of your identity and how you move throughout this world. So I'm really glad that the mom acknowledged that, and that at some point your kids are going to have to fight their own battles, and you have to prepare them, like sending them to what you think is a better school with better education is not going to prepare them for, police brutality or, other forms of racism and things that they will experience out in the world. So it's like, you kind of need to know your past in order to, the saying, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. Okay. So I'm glad the book, touched on that. So yeah, like I said, I really like that this book shows you how racism has impacted, the different generations. And it's interesting that this book is written, in the 90s, like not in the 90s, but the setting is in the 90s. So I think it's a really, like, one of the blurbs here, Nick Stone, who wrote Dear Martin, says required reading. And I can kind of agree with that. Like, I think kids today will learn a lot, about what happened in the 90s and as well as what has happened earlier, For example, they mentioned like Wall Street, and how that got burned down and things like that. So I think it is like a good kind of history lesson for the youth of today. And because our girl is so like introspective, I think that would really create some good discussion around identity and kind of where we fit in this world, this us versus them type of thing. I think having those discussions for this age group, I think that this is good. Eventually, by the end, everything does come together and she's able to stand up to her friends, tell them that, some of the things that they say and things that they do is not cool. And she's able to make, new friends. She made friends with some of the black kids, and I like how she was able to kind of bring her worlds together. She has some black friends. She had not all of her white friends because some of them do some wild things, but she has some of her white friends, you know, and they're all able to kind of be together and to coexist. And even though it's obvious that, you know, we see these differences, it's all good, you know. She realizes that, you know, there is us, there is them, and sometimes there is we, and that's okay. So things are finally like starting to click for her. You know, the world is starting to make a little bit more sense, you know, just how the world is. And even though the future could be scary, she's excited for that future, and she's excited for what type of person she's going to become. So there's a quote in the book that I think sums this up perfectly. And she says, Ashley, our main character says, "I'm beginning to think that's kind of what being an adult is. Learning that sometimes people are a little bit wrong, but not for the reasons that you think they are, and also a little bit right. And you try to take the good with the bad. Right now we're young and still figuring out how to be good." So, yeah, I think that just, you know, just encompasses, you know, what it's like to be young and to really learn about yourself, learn about your history, your culture, learn kind of where you fit into this world, and learning, you know, what type of person you want to be. You know, when you're young, you make mistakes. Like I said, some of her, you know, white friends, they do crazy things, but she was able to, like I said, confront them, and they are able to, you know, be like, you know what, you're right. I was wilding for that, you know? And she's able to even like do that for herself. Like, you know, some of the things that I allow, or some of the things that I've said, like the things that she said about the one guy, the rumor that she started, like she realizes, like, you know, I ain't shit. Like, I was really not shit for that, and that was wrong. And I know better now, you know. So I really like that. Overall, I think I would give this 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite. Like I said, we've read this is the third book that we've read that like deals with young adults and like racial tension, racism, things like that. This one wasn't my favorite, but I do think that there's a lot to be learned from this book. I think, like I said, this is perfect for the audience that it was intended for, and I do think that it should be read. I would recommend this book if you are interested in the subject. If you know some young black kids in a book club or something, like, this would be perfect. This would be the perfect book club book for young black adults. This is gonna kind of wrap up this video. I will just let you guys know my next read. I decided to go with The Second Time Sweeter. After those 3 kind of heavy books, especially after that one, and that was just like, it was just a lot. I need something light, you know, something fun, you know, something that gives fall, a cute little romance, you know, not too heavy. And I think this is it. Like I've said before, this is a second chance romance. I've already gotten into it a little bit, and I'm excited to keep reading and to give you guys updates on that. But just so you know, I am 37 weeks currently. And, you know, this baby can come at any time. So I'm not sure. I'm sure I keep saying this, like, I'm not sure what the videos are going to look like moving forward. I do have a October TBR. I will update you guys on that in the next video. I don't know. Again, like, I don't know if you're even going to be able to, like, will I even be able to get videos out in October? Like, will I even, I don't know. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. In the meantime, you might see some throwback videos, videos that I've posted on my other channel before I made like a book and TV channel. So you might get that. stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient with me. And I will catch you guys in the next video.